Hello and welcome to another episode of Power in Progress. And this is the opportunity for us to have real open dialogue around how do we support underrepresented talent? How do we ensure that we have diverse and inclusive leadership across different industries and organizations? And in this, we speak with many different guests, leaders, experts around the things they're seeing and the difference that can be made in our day-to-day. So today we have a powerful speaker, a really credible guest is going to give so much insight. I'm really looking forward to speaking with him today. So we'd love to welcome Akin. Akin Thomas is the founder and CEO of AKD Solutions. He works closely with C-suite and board members, where he's invited to support organizational change through disruptive and transformational experiences. He has a particular interest and expertise in leadership and management development, customer experience, and cultural change. And experience ranges across industries, working with clients such as Toyota, the Elizabeth Line, UK Sports, Rio Tinto, Warner Brothers, and Sony PlayStation, just to name a few. So really looking forward to the conversation today. Akin, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
No, real pleasure. And I know the listeners and viewers are really going to gain a lot from your wealth of experience that you have. So first question, and I always do ask this question, from your perspective, what does powering progress of underrepresented talent mean to you?
Ooh. Powering progress. I think I've got this conjuring of my head, which is potentially quite controversial, but I'll say it anyway. Taking the foot off our necks. Yeah. It's about really unleashing potential. It's really about the liberty, to enable people to be their true self, to be potentially their very, very best, and to recognize that that has massive benefits to everyone, to the individuals, to their communities, but to society as a whole. And so if you think about it, it's quite irrational, that we would want to suppress talent in the ways that we do, so that a small number can actually benefit from that oppression. Yeah. And so when I was thinking about it, that unfortunately, I mean, the thing that conjured up is George Floyd, when, why would you want to put your foot on the neck of another human being? Why would you want to suppress that talent? Why would you want to keep that person from potentially doing their best, especially if you're in an organization and the objective for that organization is to be productive, to be profitable, etc. Yet we have people who consciously and unconsciously, deliberately withhold those opportunities.
Yeah. Wow. And I think even as you just said from the first line, the image of the foot, and even going back to George Floyd, actually makes you realize how important this is. And the minute you release your foot off someone's neck, just that feeling, even in myself, I just felt, oh, there's freedom now, rather, as you said, suppressed. And let's be honest here, a lot of the conversations that organizations are having only really started to pick up after what happened with George Floyd. So I think it's poignant actually to really bring home some of those reminders of kind of where we are, where we've been, and actually what does real progress mean?
Definitely. I think, I've been around for a while, and one of the things I've seen is that the issue of race was kicked into the long grass. Yeah, it was too hard to handle. It was too difficult. People wanted to iterate the change so that it was comfortable for the majority, because the majority didn't want to really look in the mirror and have to confront some very difficult truths. But that moment in time and because the world has stood still, it created a very big mirror in which people had to really look at themselves. Organizations had to look at themselves and had to really confront some very difficult truths. And so very poignant. And I think, what we've seen is that we've seen a lot of narrative. I think we've seen a lot of change. I think we've seen a lot of positive change, but we've seen a lot of narrative. We've seen a lot of people saying the right things, but being performative rather than transformative. Like their actions don't really match up. But to be honest, that would be expected if you think about it. it is a the legacy, the history that we're trying to transform is deep, it is long. And so therefore, if we are thinking that we can change that in months or years, we have to be realistic.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about discomfort and difficult conversations. I often talk about using heat and light, where heat is where you have to put the heat on people to say, look, something needs to be done, and you're in a position to do something to really lighten the fire up on under them. And
Hmm.
light, where it's a lighter approach. You're kind of meeting people where you are because you don't want to kind of scare them or make them feel uncomfortable. But what for you is that balance when we're talking about progress between the heat and the light?
Really good. I think there's a couple of things. I think one of the things I've said many times in workshops or when I'm with leadership teams, I've said that you're going to experience some moments of discomfort, but this is temporary for you. For some people, it's a lifetime.
Mm.
So I think that on the very fact that some people have this for a lifetime, you can spare us a few moments of discomfort. Yeah. Um, I think it's about um engaging people and getting them to, so for example, I think there's two things. Firstly, people must be able to tell their stories unapologetically. Yeah. And I think that's very hard because when you've been silent for so minutes for so long, yeah, then to articulate your story in the way in which you want to can be very difficult. But then it's about making sure that people listen without filters,
Mm.
because often people try to hear your story through their lens, yeah, or through their filters. And so therefore, oh, that could never happen, or oh, are you sure? You understand that justification. And so it's really about how do you support people to truly listen without those filters. And I think the other thing is this. I think what's really important is this, is to recognize this, is that the majority, the power lies with the majority. And if you lose a majority, things are not going to change.
Mm.
And so one of the things I said, that there must be discomfort, but there must be kindness. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people with very, very good intentions, but they don't know how, they don't know when, why, etc. They don't know. And so they're on a journey as well. And if we don't show kindness to people, yeah.
Mm.
So for example, if someone says the wrong thing, but is genuine and that they've made a mistake, don't beat them up.
Mm.
Yeah, because you lose them. You understand? Okay. Um, Allow people to make mistakes, allow people to kind of stumble, but when they stumble, pick them up. You understand? Okay. And I think that's a balance that we've got to do. And I think the one more thing, I think that we have to understand why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And I think for organizations and for people, we have to make sure that we're ticking the right boxes. For some people, it's the moral case, it's the social case, yeah, the morality of what is, yeah, this is the right thing to do. But we also have to recognize that this is a economic case for many,
Mm.
yeah. So if we've been very truthful, yeah, race and economics, there's a very, very deep interconnection between the two. Yeah, okay. And so when some organizations see, oh, there's an economic benefit to this, that's their box that they tick. Now, you may not agree with that. You may find that quite, in some ways, quite abhorrent, but it's a reality. But if it means that we're shifting the dial, yeah, and it means that we're starting to make progress in terms of that unleashed potential, then we have to recognize that's one of the levers that's going to have to be pulled.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting what you're saying in that understanding there are different levers for change, and it might
Mhm.
be some leaders may be able to lift certain levers easier than others, and it's about, well, not pushing people to say no, that this is the way or that's the lever. It's like, okay, if this is what's going to power progress, as you say, what is the ultimate goal? And
Yep.
a big part of what we're trying to do today with this conversation is we want leaders from these underrepresented backgrounds because we know the potential that they have, and for so long there's been barriers or there's been issues. And yes, we're talking a lot about race and ethnicity here, which is one area, but this
Mhm.
can also be relevant
Sure.
for other underrepresented backgrounds as well. And as people start to get their heads around this, hopefully they can start to see that. And for yourself as a leader, as a founder, someone who has sort of brought people on board, someone who has their own responsibility of allowing different backgrounds and people to flourish.
Mhm.
What are some of the key things that have shaped your view on your own journey?
Hmm. Um, I think one of the things, okay, so if I look at my history, I was fostered to a white family from 6 weeks old. So that had a profound impact upon who I am and how I do things. So um, and so I experienced poverty, I experienced racism from a very young age, but I didn't know the labels that you associate with it. Yeah. And I think the other driver for me has been justice. Yeah. I hate injustice. And so my leadership is really shaped by, yeah, these things in terms of especially the issue of justice, especially the fact that I am passionate about people fulfilling their potential. Yeah. Um, I I feel one of my biggest irritations is when I see people who are living way below par. It hurts me, in fact, it knocks me, yeah. And so I think that really kind of shapes my thought process, my behaviors when I engage with people. I'm always pushing people to be their very best. I'm always looking at how do I mentor, how do I create opportunities for people to flourish. So I
Mm,
think that's been really key. And also, I think the other thing that's shaped my leadership is that I just refuse to accept the norm.
mm,
Yeah. Um, it's really interesting because I was interviewed by Professor Jules Goddard. So he's at the London Business School, and he interviewed me for this book that he was doing. And he basically, the book was called Maverick Leadership. Yeah. And he said, that's what you are. And so it helped me to really understand my leadership in terms of don't follow rules. Yeah. I like breaking rules. I like trying new things. I like making the mistakes. I like to explore. And I think that's really key because I think a lot of leaders play it safe.
mm,
Yeah. And therefore they don't get the results. So if you're thinking about unleashing potential, yeah, but you as a leader play it safe, you will go to your default in terms of what you see as success.
mm,
And often that mirrors who you look like and your kind of network. Yeah. And so therefore, leaders have to break out of their comfort zones and do things differently. And if you think about leadership, that's almost the kind of genesis, that's the definition of leadership, because you shouldn't be in the same place where you started. Yeah. And if we are in the same place, then you may be a good manager, but have you really led? Have you really created that level of change?
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you really created a future that looks very different to when you started?
Yeah, that's powerful. And for me, as you speak, it just keeps reframing what this is about. Because often, yes, there's all these conversations around DEI and what it is, but actually, this is about leadership. This is not just about diversity, equity, as you said. This is about leaders bringing people forward. This is about transformation. This is around
Yeah.
culture. This is around making a real difference. I often talk to, and as you spoke, it's kind of like, yeah, Atkins ticked every one of these things off. I talk about how do you really create change and build momentum, and I talk about 5 Ps around having purpose, having passion, being really present, being positive, knowing that there's going to be challenges and being aware of the progress and everything you kind of talked about there. There was elements of that you need
Yeah.
to actually lead not only yourself but others. And I think this is again a powerful message. This can't just be a message for someone trying to navigate their career and you need to do this, you need to do that. It's actually a call to action
Very
for
much so.
leaders at the moment to say, this is part of your remit. This is not a nice to have. this this is what your job title is about, is creating that change and making that difference. And it's great to hear kind of leaders embodying it like yourself. And I know you're around in your line of work around many leaders, whether you're at the board table or whether you're having discussions. What do you think are the obstacles that are maybe stopping them from kind of being that leader and really driving change and bringing underrepresented talent along?
Um, Couple of things. So, well, firstly, is about the fact that we live in a very individualistic society. So it's about me. Yeah. And one of the things I tend to see is the leaders who really push for change are the ones who are looking at legacy. They've done it. They've got nothing to prove. Yeah. So often when you're sitting with leaders who, you know what I mean, like established, you know, done the CEO, done the C-suite, yeah, they're far more relaxed. They're
Mm,
far more willing to lean into different agendas because actually I've proven it, yeah. I think the ones where it is more fearful for them is the ones who are progressing. Yeah.
mm,
Because we talk about meritocracy, but the reality is it's not a meritocracy. Yeah. Most organizations are not meritocracy. Yeah. Okay. And so therefore the reality is that there's a lot of guys who don't want to compete against that woman.
mm,
Yeah. I think there's a thing, we talk about unconscious bias, but I think there's a conscious bias which we tend to ignore. And I think the other thing that we don't talk about is entitlement. Yeah. There are certain groups of people who think they're entitled to those positions. And
mm,
so therefore they are affronted when a female, for example, gets it, or a person with disability, because you see, when a female gets the position, suddenly she must have slept with somebody. Yeah. No, the fact that she's really, really talented, they want to reduce it to the sexuality. Yeah. And that comes from a place of entitlement. Yeah. Because when you see others progressing and filling positions that you think you're entitled to, you will start to create a narrative to justify their being in that place and you being where you are.
mm,
Yeah. And so I think that's really important. So I think that those concepts are really important. I think fear is really important as well, because often there is just this fear as leaders. If you lead from a place of fear, and a lot of leaders do. So I say there's a spectrum in leadership that goes from fear to faith. Yeah. Absolute faith. This is going to happen. We're going to make it happen. We know it's going to be tough, but we're going to push through, to people who are paralyzed in fear, fear of getting it wrong, fear of losing a job, fear of, oh my God, I've got to pay the mortgage, etc., etc., etc. And so therefore, when you're in that space of fear and you operate from fear, you really reduce yourself, but you also reduce those around you as well, because you limit yourself and you limit everybody else around you as well.
mm.
Yeah. And so we talk about bravery, and I think I think the problem with the word bravery, it feels often very masculine. Yeah. Okay. Um, but the reality, there is a courage that is required in leadership. Yeah. That it's not about me, it's about the bigger picture.
Mm,
Yeah. It's about the fact that I'm going to have to make difficult decisions.
yeah.
It's about the fact that not everybody's going to be comfortable with what I have to do, but I know it's the right thing to do. And knowing that you have the support structures around you and the absolute belief to actually push through and make those things happen. And when you see that, it is very profound. But also recognizing that those type of leaders often pay a personal cost for being the first, for pushing forward.
Mm,
Yeah. And so you may look at those people who have been courageous, made those changes, yeah, but also seen the battles that they've had to go through and think, you know what, that's not a street I want to go down.
yeah, yeah. This is really important for people to understand, because often the conversation feels quite binary, that you have, let's say, the junior person from underrepresented background who needs help, needs support, challenges barriers to get up, and you have a senior leader who is the expert, who has the keys and just needs to open the door for them.
Yeah,
And it's clearly so much more nuanced, because
right.
you have leaders, as you said, who are fearful, who don't know how to
Yeah,
open the door, that need support themselves, that are worried about how they're going to look and what they say, getting it wrong, all of those different things.
absolutely.
Frame this, maybe the question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, should not always be, well, why isn't the leader doing this? What they need to do? Maybe the question is, what support does a senior leader need to really open the door?
Absolutely. I
Although,
think, yeah, I think what's interesting is this, yeah, is that everybody thinks that they can do a better job. Everybody thinks they can do a better job. But the reality is that leadership is a very challenging and difficult space. And when I've spent a lot of time around leaders, and when you realize the pressures, the decisions, the things that they have to go through, yeah, and they're also often very isolated. They have very few people they can talk to. etc., is a very challenging space. And I think that there is a level of acknowledgement that we need to do. Now, it's not to say that we let them off the hook. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Okay. Because let's talk about health and safety. Yeah. For example, yeah. You can't come to me this month and say, I only killed 3 people. I'll do better next month. Yeah. It just wouldn't be accepted. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm.
And so there is an accountability, yeah, that comes with leadership, which means that if you step into the space, it comes with these terms and conditions.
Mm.
Yeah. Both explicit and implicit. Yeah. So when you step into this ring, yeah, know what you're stepping into. And maybe that's one of the challenges, that people don't actually know, what am I really stepping into? Yeah. And am I really made for this? Am I able to engage with people who don't look like me, don't talk like me, don't look like me? Am I able to provide opportunity? Yeah. It's there's got to be an acknowledgement, but also there's got to be an accountability. And I think when it comes to this space, in terms of optimizing people's potential, people really are quite lazy in this space. And I think the reason is this, yeah, one of the big barriers is that most leaders are operational, not strategic.
Mm.
Most leaders are still spending time in the midst of the kind of the day-to-day grind of an organization where they have no business in that space. They should be up, they should be thinking, they should be planning, they should be kind of visioning, they should be developing people. But often, because of the way in which the organizations function, they're sucked into levels beneath where they should not be functioning.
Yeah, wow, wow. It's when it comes to underrepresented talent and their progress,
Mm-hmm.
what do you believe the strategic priority should be?
Ooh. What should be their strategic priorities? I think the strategic priorities is, for every organization, they have a vision, which has to be met. And they engage a group of people called a workforce to fulfill that vision. Now, it's a very basic formula, but if you optimize your people and you optimize the culture and environment that they work in, you're going to get great results. But if you have a percentage, which could be quite a large percentage, who have been denied opportunities, who are seen as less than, who are not given the opportunities, you are shooting yourself in the foot, even in the simplest form. That how can we get the best out of people? By releasing them. How strategically, the objective is this, yeah? How do we optimize every individual in this organization so that they can turn up, yeah, love the organization and deliver great services? Yeah. That's the basic, yeah. Now, so one of the things about that means that we need to think about equity more than equality. Yeah. Because for you, Lomre, to flourish, you need something different to what I need. True? Yeah. Okay. You may need 5 and I only need 2. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah. So are we brave enough to move resources around so that you can optimize? Because again, when we say equality, you get 2, I get 2. What's your problem? Yeah. Okay. But really and truly, what we've done is that we've stifled the organization by playing into a narrative which sounds on the basis fair,
Mm.
but the reality is not really giving us what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, so we've got to be honest that actually, if we shift resources over here, yeah, we're going to get better results. So we can do that often with money, but we don't do it with people. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
And so the strategic thing is this, yeah, how do we, how do I get the best? So I remember having a conversation with my team. This was just around COVID, and I recognized there was a couple of things. I was pushing and pushing my team for results, yeah. And I found out that one of my team, she was menopausal, and she simply said, I can't. And in that moment, I had to stop and really rethink what does success look like for an organization. And then there were other people and they had different things. And so I found myself starting to talk to the team and saying, what does it look like for you? Because if you can't give me 8 hours, yeah, give me 3, give me 4, I'll take them. because I know that you're going to make it up later on down the line. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that bit to optimize people, you can't I cannot optimize you. I cannot create the right environment if I don't know you.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I just simply look at you as a black male or as a disabled person, and I simply put a box around you that you need this and this and this, we've missed the mark.
Definitely. This is so much, and it's a theme with a lot of conversations been having. The power of connection. This is about building relationships. This is
Yeah,
about understanding people. This isn't just about building a framework that anyone can fit in. It's about you build that framework around the people you have, um, and then you move forward from there.
absolutely.
And some of these things, people just need to sit back
Yeah.
and
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 people,
realize.
and I think what people think that it sounds really, really hard. It sounds, why do we need to be so individualistic? But I was working with a the justice company, yeah, and in their warehouse they had 53 different shift patterns, 53 different shift patterns to ensure that you have to pick up your children. Cool, we've got you. Yeah, you need to study. We've got you. You got to do this. You got you. Yeah. They said, you know what? At the beginning, it was a nightmare. However, now they are a employer of choice in the area because of their flexibility.
Mm,
They made a strategic decision to say, you know what? We recognize that to get the talent in, we have to change how we work. And it works. Yeah. Yeah. You go through some teething problems, but just imagine that 53 different shift patterns in one warehouse and it works.
mm.
Yeah, that's incredible thinking. I've said it to some of my other logistical companies, and they look at me and they kind of take a deep breath in. You understand? It's like, nah, it couldn't work. Well, it is over there.
Yeah. And that's the thing as well. Some of these things, it sounds so overwhelming, but sometimes it's just a small tweak.
Absolutely,
Great book
absolutely,
by Jeff Olson, The Slight Edge, and he talks about
brilliant.
that slight edge, that slight
Yeah,
change. And if you
yeah,
change the language as well from, oh, we can't do this, or we
yeah.
can just do that. We can just make 53 different slots, and this is how we're going to do it. And it might
Absolutely.
not be like this, but we follow through and it
Mm,
makes real change.
yeah,
Also want to ask you as well, Akin, because I know you've got kind of great experience, entrepreneurial side and supporting people in business, and just interested to get your thoughts when it comes to underrepresented talent and entrepreneurship. Kind of how do we ensure that people who want to be entrepreneurial and want to go that route have those opportunities too?
yeah. I work so um, I I have a ministry, so I'm an elder in my church, and I have a ministry called Dominion Mandate, and I'm currently working with probably around 25 different business owners. Yeah, okay, right from they're just the genesis of the idea, right through to like they're matured and they're starting to work and they're starting to function. Yeah, okay, um, and I think this country is run on entrepreneurs. The country is run on, yeah, in fact, the world itself, yeah, is run on entrepreneurs, yeah, okay. I think is about giving people the understanding that this is an option that is viable to you. And I think that we're living in 2025, the opportunity to be an entrepreneur is greater than it's ever been.
Mm,
Yeah, okay. I'm seeing young people come up with some ideas, which is like, where did that come from? How do you do that? So there's this, I think entrepreneur is a real great leveler. I think the problem is about often access to finance,
mm,
access to expertise. But also what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing some really great moves in this space. So for example, there's a young lady called Michelle Raymond, yeah, and she has basically opened doors to support small business owners from diverse communities to have access to corporate contracts.
mm,
She's given them the template. These are the things you need to do. Yeah. So these things are existing. There's a lot of, especially women. And when I go to a conference, yeah, which is kind of about entrepreneurs, yeah, 90% of the participants are women.
mm,
To the point is like, it is really profound. It's really stark. 90% are definitely women. And so therefore there's this big drive in terms of women taking ownership, taking seizing the opportunities. Yeah. Okay. I think we have to also recognize it is a challenging space. It's a very challenging. I love it. I've been doing this for 28 years. I've had an amazing opportunities. I've had big ups and I've had big downs. But I think it's about tapping into different communities, yeah, where you can get support. The support is out there.
Yeah.
I think the key issue is that, especially if you're looking to scale, it's about the financial literacy. Yeah. The financial literacy. I think if you want investors, people want, yeah, they want to three things. They like you, they like the idea, they're going to get their money. Yeah. Now, very simple to say, but actually, those three things, if you don't tick all three of those boxes, yeah, you're going to struggle. That's if you want to scale in terms of money. So I think it's about the opportunities are there. I think I'm seeing so many young people just and so many women, yeah. And I think that, yeah, it's just about find communities, tap into different kind of communities where they're entrepreneurs, you can get that level of support. Yeah. Okay. Um, and just do it. And I think the key thing is this, yeah, there will be failure.
Mm,
Just understand it's part of the formula.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Understand it's part of the formula. It hurts, it's painful. I've seen it in my son. My son is just, yeah, I mean, he did something phenomenal. It didn't work. Yeah.
Mm.
I see the pain, but also I can stand on the sideline saying, you know what? It was good for you because when you come back, you're going to be bigger and better and stronger. So again, it's just understanding the realities that, yeah, it's not an easy journey, but it is an extremely rewarding journey.
Mm.
Yeah. If you stick to it and you push through.
Yeah, good advice because especially that thing where you're not going to always get it first time, and as you say, there are still barriers. I've got a younger cousin, and they're embarking on a entrepreneurial journey as well. Two black boys, and one of the things they've said and they've talked about seriously of do we need to get a white person on board to secure investment because of that's the things they're hearing
Yeah.
in conversations, that's the challenges they're facing. Interested to get your thoughts on that, on kind of representation in terms of getting funding and venture capitalists and anything that people should or could be doing to make a difference in this space.
Okay. I find it repugnant that we have to talk about having to get somebody who's white specific to get, yeah, I find it repugnant. Yeah. But also I understand it's a real reality for some people. I would say to you that there are a number of black investors. There are a number of investment companies who are geared towards tech and black business owners, etc. That are out there. So I think maybe a couple of things. Firstly, widen your search. Secondly, I think again, if you look at the work I'm calling Michelle's doing with Lloyd's Bank, and Lloyd's are very, very clear and they have very specific channels, yeah, to support black businesses. Yeah. So I think what you're going to find is this, yeah, that there are, if you search, there are definitely organizations, there are definitely banks, yeah, who have got specific schemes and strategies to support black businesses. Yeah. Okay. So you've got to tap into those. But there are, me personally, I think if you compromise at the beginning like that, yeah, and I understand why you would, but I see it as a compromise. I would rather wait a little while longer to know that there's authenticity in terms of what we've done. And also just from the reality is this, yeah, just keep it real. From a share perspective, yeah, you've just given away just given away 30% of your business because a because of this, yeah. Uh, keep that 30%, yeah. Go seek it elsewhere because it's there. It is there. You're just gonna have to dig a little harder, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, no, that's good advice because I'm sure there are individuals or groups who maybe have been struggling, maybe wondering why they're not getting that funding, and that might be something they're thinking about, talking about, and part of this again as well is can we broaden the horizon of people? Can we get people to think and reframe things differently, which will ultimately kind of help their career or their business or whatever it might be? And so yeah, I'm sure there's people listening, watching, thinking, oh. I'm definitely going to do something a little bit different
Yeah, definitely.
by listening to this. So yeah, it's really, really appreciated. Akin, we have come close to time. One last thing I'd love to kind of hear from you on, and that is, what does powering progress look like for you personally?
Ooh. okay, I have big dreams to change the narrative. So one of the things I say is that I feel I have a big responsibility to change the narrative about who we are in business. Yeah. I am angered and I'm fed up with us being perceived as consumers. Yeah. And not producers. I'm fed up with people targeting us for their goods. So for example, you know that, I'm going to call it out. The brands will put their sneaker shops where we are because they know that they're going to sell out. You understand? The chicken shops will put, okay. So I want to change the narrative. I want us to find ourselves, I want to support our young people to create businesses, which are broad in terms of different industries, which are credible, which are high functioning organizations. I want us to be able to sit at any table we want to sit at. Okay. And so that's for me is what it's about. So I have a dream, to launch 1,000 young Black entrepreneurs. That's one of the dreams I have. 1,000 young Black entrepreneurs. And they must pay it forward. They must give back. And I think if we can create something of that nature, we will see a momentum which will be unstoppable.
Great. Wow. Fantastic. And I'm with you. I'm on the journey with you. And I just believe this is really important. And it's great to hear that even individuals like yourself who are really powering their progress, but there's still more progress for everyone to go, and that's the reason we want to ask that question, because there's realization that this never stops and that there's always something to push towards and always somewhere to grow or to learn and develop. Akin, it's been a real pleasure kind of having you here, and I'm sure listeners, viewers would have taken so much from this. We're going to have to get you back in definitely to talk more, but yeah, look forward to connecting soon. That's the end of another episode. Continue to power your progress. Speak soon. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.